Well, hello folks, this is Rod. When by doing part-time reseller. Doing it a lot of the time, but part-time reseller on eBay. I call it part-time, not because of the amount of work that I put into it, but because it is my secondary source of income. I am a full-time IT guy. Spend most of my time at work doing data analysis and report building for the company I work for. A lot of automation stuff. My wife and I also own an ice cream business. We have 3 trucks on the road right now. Well, during the summer months. It is winter. Fall, winter is upon us. I was actually up in the mountains and saw a little bit of snow spitting. I couldn't tell you the elevation. All I know is it is a climb up to the mountains. In the truck, park the truck every time I'm up there, and then walk 2 miles into our campsite for elk season, elk/deer. A little bit more about that here in a few. But when we also have one more truck that's on the road, and we also have a concession stand that we run during the summer months. So, you know, somewhat of a full plate. All that in the middle of raising our 11-year-old daughter. No, we don't only have one child. This is the last one in the house. So, father of 5. We are a blended family, just 2 and 2 plus 1. Just to give you a kind of a recap of who I am and what I do. Today, I thought I would touch on zero feedback customers, and does that constitute a scammer? You know, there's a lot of, if you're part of any social media group, you know, outlets, or, you know, participate in any reseller Facebook groups, a lot of them, you'll see a lot of members that complain about scam buyers, blocking buyers, whatever, for whatever reason, whether they take too long to pay, whether they whether they just have zero feedback, whatever. I want you to consider the fact that eBay has really been ramping up advertisement. When I say advertisement, you know, as I'm driving over the weekend and in the last week, I actually had the radio on, which is something that I don't typically do. I'm usually, you know, plug in something on YouTube and listen to that while I'm driving or whatever. But, you know, iHeartRadio, I don't know, whatever I'm usually listening to does not include radio, so I don't typically see the radio ads. But because I was up traveling in the mountains, I turned on the radio so I could get something to listen to because cell service was spotty. Heard multiple radio spots for eBay, you know, quoting numbers of different types of items that sell, you know, every minute on eBay, how there's always a deal to be found on eBay. And I want to say, I don't know, at some point, I don't know if it was on YouTube, if it was on Voodoo, you know, at some point I thought I had even seen some television spots as well promoting eBay. What this is going to do is cause an influx of new buyers, which is really what the goal is. You know, eBay is trying to gain more market share on the online retail space to, you know, to promote growth, which is going to be good for all of us, right? The more buyers that come in, the more customers that we would potentially have searching for the items that we're trying to sell. And with these new buyers, you're going to have a lot of buyers that have zero feedback. This does not constitute a scam buyer. it's just new customers. And, you know, we were all new at some point. We all had zero feedback at some point. So, you know, I would think that we really want to see a lot of zero feedback customers, because that means that these ads are working, right? I mean, that's what we want. We want more customers coming to look at our items to put some money in our pockets. As far as scam buyers, you know, I would say I might have had, I would say 2 over the course of the time I've been doing eBay that I really felt were scamming me. And you know what? That's going to happen. But it doesn't mean that everybody that has a zero feedback is a scammer. I would think that as we get more a larger customer base on eBay, that the percentage of scammers that are actually out there is going to be less frequent. You know, one of the other things I saw was when people were, you know, there's a lot of conversation on when people do not buy. I mean, you can, if you want to avoid, or when they don't pay right away, if you want to avoid that, just set everything as pay immediately. But with eBay, if that's not the, I don't believe that's the default on your account, is to pay immediately. If you do not have that set, I think that a lot of these, especially these newer customers, may not be accustomed to a checkout system where you don't have to pay immediately. Maybe some of them look at it and say, oh, I've already purchased that, and think it's done. So unless you send that gentle reminder to pay for the item so that you can ship it, they may not even realize that they haven't paid for the item as yet. So, you know, that's one recommendation. I don't have it set that way, but one recommendation is set it for pay immediately. Maybe it's something I'll look into doing, but, you know, it's really taking seconds out of my day. If I see that they haven't paid for it immediately, I go ahead and send them that little payment nudge. And I would say I might have had a half dozen purchases in the last year where I actually opened a non-payment case, and probably 3 or 4 of those I actually ended up having to cancel the order after the fact. And yeah, that does suck, because when they don't pay at all, because then you have to wait for that time period for them to respond. You know, eBay gives them a few days to respond before you can even open the non-payment case, and then after the non-payment case, there's a couple days in there that eBay's going to contact them before you can actually cancel and relist the item. That is, I'll agree, that is a headache, but you know, it's just kind of how you have your preferences set up on your account. And another thing that's even more of a pain is when if you have global shipping on those items, you don't have communication whatsoever with the buyer, because it's global. Any global shipment or global orders that come through, eBay handles all the communication for them. But I would say, you know, just in closing on that portion, don't be scared of negative feedback or zero feedback for customers. But look at, you know, how many actual scammers do you feel that you've experienced in the course of you doing, you know, your eBay business? And I mean, when you're doing that evaluation, you know, look at it wholeheartedly and determine, is it really a scammer? If they're asking for a partial refund on an item, is it really that they're just trying to cheat you, or is it that you didn't fully disclose any issues with the item when you did your listing? I know that most of the time I have made an error or neglected to fully disclose items, whether it be because I missed it when I was taking the photos or for whatever reason. Most of the times I've had to deal with returns or folks requesting a partial refund. It was really something that I did, you know, myself. It was something that I could have corrected. So it's really important that you, when you're doing your listings, that, or when you're doing this evaluation, that you have to open up, is there anything that I personally could have done to improve my listing, to make sure that everything, any issue was disclosed, and that my description accurately depicted the actual quality of the item. And the only reason I say that, because I have had to pull myself back and say, you know what, the customer was actually right in this case. There was a button missing on the top of the shirt. There was I didn't test this item to make sure it worked, and when I, just assuming that it was, and when the customer received it, it didn't work. That's something I should have done. I should have tested myself. So, you know, if you're going to take a chance not testing items, you need to be open for returns in the event that it doesn't work, and accept the responsibility that you didn't do your due diligence to make sure that the item worked before sending. I mean, there's lots of different reasons out there that an item can be defective or misrepresented. It doesn't mean that your intention was to misrepresent the item. It's just that you missed it, or you didn't do due diligence to make sure item was working, or that you ensured that your description and title and everything truly described what the item was and what the customer was getting. But look at how many actual sales that you have had that you felt that you actually got scammed, that was truly, you know, that it wasn't something that you could have done better or improved in your own listing. I mean, that's what we want to do, right? We want to make sure that we're sending everything out and we don't have to experience a return or, you know, negative feedback. But don't automatically assume that a customer is going to scam you because they have zero feedback whatsoever. It's going to happen with growth, and, you know, not only with growth of the number of new customers coming in that are going to have zero feedback, but also, you know, getting them trained how to buy on eBay to make sure that they're paying right away, that they understand the whole user interface on eBay when making their purchases, that, you know, they might have to take that next step to complete the transaction and pay for the item. I mean, there's, you know, we're the sellers here. It is, even though we're on a eBay's platform, you know, we're still in the position to train these new customers coming in. And you know what? I think that we need to welcome growth. I think we need to be open-minded and welcome these new customers coming in with zero feedback, and make sure that we're giving positive feedback whenever the transition's complete. The transaction is complete, sorry. Just a touch, you know, why I haven't been putting much content out there. This year I took up hunting, and I know, you know, some people may not understand that, you know, there's a lot of negative connotation that goes along with hunting, but I assure you that nothing goes to waste if we were to get something. And who's to say I even get something? They call it hunting for a reason. You're just looking at that point. It's not until you actually see something and get to benefit from the meat taken from those items. But that's what I've been doing. Opening season was last Wednesday for elk and deer. I've been up in the mountains. It's beautiful up there, fall colors. Like I said, it is I would say it's probably 28 miles roughly. I want to say, but it takes an hour to get there, because most of it is, you know, there's 8 miles of it that's on mountain roads, old logging roads. And then by the time I get to the place where I park on the saddle, there's another 1.8 miles hike up the mountain, which for this fat man, I think I lost 5 pounds over the last weekend for, in 2 or 3 days, just because of the amount of walking I've been doing up and down the mountains. And, I would say we're putting in anywhere from 5 to 8 miles a day. So, just, and this is something new for me. I'm almost 50 years old, and I always enjoyed the outdoors, but for whatever reason, I have not taken the time to go out and enjoy it. So, just the beauty of being out in nature, seeing all the fall colors, it's gorgeous. And, the only negative side is huffing and puffing when you're carrying a pack 2 miles straight up the mountain. But saw lots of elk sign. For those of you that aren't, you're looking for elk crap and elk piss, and looking for tree rubs. But we've heard the elk bugle yesterday. We heard an actual herd move in right below us, and just hearing something that sounds, it's all of a sudden quiet. It's quiet the entire time. All of a sudden, hear something that sounds like a freight train moving through the woods. I mean, it just gets your adrenaline pumping. Hearing the elk bugle, a couple of the nights. That's another thing that gets your adrenaline running. Finding fresh sign that looks like it was left right there at the beginning of the morning. That it's all stuff. It's just been fun. Outside of the freezing nights and cold mornings, and it kind of makes it a little bit worth it, just being able to experience the beauty of outdoors. So that's why I haven't been putting hardly any content out. But I thought I'd come in and touch base today on the zero feedback customers, and the growth of customer base is what we're hoping for through all these ads. But anyway, that's it for today. I will catch y'all later.